हरि ओम।
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनी अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तुते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपा प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दना पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुदं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी उत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदी कैवर्तककेशवा पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं सीतार्थघन्तोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्परैरहरः पीपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमला प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणीन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवै वेदे साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगा ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। शिवाय तस्मै नमः शिवाय तस्मै नमः।
So, in chapter 1, we learnt about a lot of aspects, but the two major ones that I wanted to touch upon today. One, Swajanam. Swa means my, and Janam means people. So, this concept of my people. Arjuna went through this aspect where he saw everyone on either side of the battlefield, on his side as well as on the enemy side. He saw them as my people. When we saw this earlier too, when I and my, this concept of I and my prevail, objectivity is lost. And when objectivity is lost, that leads to loss in efficiency. People do not do what they are supposed to do in an efficient manner. Even if they may be doing what they are supposed to do, which is effective, but the efficiency comes down. And when that happens, it results in poor performance. And poor performance leads to sadness and delusion. Because performance is relative to not just I and my, it is relative to our environment also. And that leads to sadness and delusion. This is really an inner virus. Since we are all very familiar nowadays with virus, this is an inner virus. This sadness and delusion, because it causes a lot of other aspects. The other concept that we read about was Swadharma. Again, Swa means my, Dharma is duty. In this context, Dharma is duty, though we talked about Dharma in a number of different contexts. So Swadharma, which is performing my duty, cannot be done to perfection if there is this sense of aham or I, mama or my, which is followed by shoka or sadness or sorrow, moha or delusion, and then that needs to Swadharma Paripalada. I'm introducing this for the first time, so you may want to note it down. Paripalada means what should be there but is not there. And when repeatedly what should be there or the duty that I should do, I'm not doing repeatedly, then that leads to dereliction of duty or Swadharma Nasha. These are two important concepts that we must keep in mind right through 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita as we study them. So Sri Krishna, when Arjuna is in that state, he had that much of standing in front of Arjuna that he could have told Arjuna, shut up and go and start fighting. Don't use your brains right now. I'm commanding you, start fighting right now. Or he could have started a motivating talk, like we hear about these motivation lectures, right? He could have started, in terms of motivating Arjuna and given him that motivation pill. But Sri Krishna is not required for that. That could be done by other people out there who are physically assembled there. Yudhishthira could have done that. Drishtadyumna could have done that. A lot of other people, for all you know, even Bhishma and Drona would have done that because they have blown their conches. So they may have themselves told Arjuna, don't sit there like someone who is lost it all and stand up and fight. They could have challenged Arjuna, and that challenge could have ignited him to fight. But Sri Krishna was not required. So Sri Krishna is required to bring about a solution that addresses the root cause. And that is what is very, very critical. He is required for the repair of the root cause, the root problem. And that is what he does. And how does he do that? How does he solve the root problem? He solves that through Sankhya, Sankhya Yoga. Now we saw earlier what yoga means. We said yoga is essentially that which unites. It is the means. Yoga actually means the means. So that through which something is united. It comes from the root yuj. We saw all this earlier too. So the means by which anything unites is yoga. And in Arjuna Vishada Yoga, we saw that sorrow is the means through which Arjuna unites with Sri Krishna, with the Lord. Now in Sankhya Yoga, Sankhya means knowledge. And the Lord gives the unison or uniting with knowledge as the solution for this quote unquote Arjuna problem. This Arjuna problem of despair, Vishada, this Arjuna problem of sorrow, which has led to delusion, which has led to dereliction of duty. In the middle of the battlefield, he has cast away his weapons and said, I am not going to fight. We see that often in our circumstances also, where people who are supposed to do their duty, they cast away their responsibilities, they cast away their tools of performance of duty and just refuse to do or just don't bother to do. And at that kind of a situation, Krishna comes up with a problem where he gives the fundamental knowledge, Sankhya, with which the unison happens, and that becomes the solution for this problem. So we now enter chapter 2 formally. Chapter 2 is divided into two portions. The first portion is from verse 1 to 38, and the second portion is from verse 39 till the end of the chapter, which is till verse 72. We will see why it is divided into these two portions later. We will come to that. It is also said to be the summary of the Bhagavad Gita. And it is the summary of the Bhagavad Gita in anticipation, in prospect, in the beginning. So what is going to be said, what is going to be taught is summarized in the beginning. In Sanskrit, this is termed as Vastu Sangraha Adhyaya. Adhyaya means chapter. Sangraha is the bringing together of whatever is going to be taught. So it is essentially a chapter that collects all that is going to be elaborated later on. Now there are two more summaries in the Bhagavad Gita. The other summary is like any good teacher, Sri Krishna starts with a summary and then ends with a summary. So chapter 18 is also a summary, and chapter 18 has 78 verses. These are the two longest chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2 and chapter 18, which are the summary actually. And that is a summary in retrospect, after having taught everything. And then chapter 15 also, a little beyond the middle, is a summary too. And it is a very short chapter, 20 verses. And that essentially, chapter 15 is a presentation of all the important aspects in short, in a succinct manner. So actually, Sri Krishna talks about it in the final verse of chapter 15, and I will recite this. It's a very interesting verse where he actually tells Arjuna that I have given you the entire Shastra. Iti guhyatamam shastram.
Iti guhyatamam shastram.
Idamuktam maya nagha.
Idamuktam maya nagha.
Etad buddhva buddhiman syat.
Etad buddhva buddhiman syat.
Kritakriyatyaschya bharata.
Kritakriyatashcha bharata.
Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam maya naga etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. So essentially here what Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna is, I have given you all the scientific secret knowledge. You know, a lot of this knowledge is secret where people don't share with each other openly. And Sri Krishna says, I have given it to you all. And knowing this, you will be able to do all your duties. You will be able to become wise. You will become knowledgeable. And you will do your duties and accomplish all that you are supposed to accomplish. So essentially, you know, through Sankhya, through knowledge, Sri Krishna, the Lord, is helping us, one, giving us the knowledge, which will then lead to the wisdom. And He's ensuring that we are able to perform our duties in an efficient manner. So this chapter 2 is nothing but Vastu Sangraha Adhyaya, which is the summary in the beginning. In the beginning is Upakrama, or in prospect, in anticipation. Upasamhara is chapter 18, which is in retrospect. And Abhyasa is chapter 15 in the middle. And all these three chapters are Vastu Sangra Adhyaya. And you will see all this in the notes. So those of you who have not been able to write it down now, don't worry about it. When I send you the notes, all of this is written there. So in this situation, I'm sure you can all guess who is the happiest person. The happiest person who is now feeling really thrilled is Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra always did not want the war to take place. In fact, if you remember, he was hoping that because Kurukshetra happens to be Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, he was thinking that Yudhishthira will somehow, that one single thought, because he is the representative of Dharma, that single thought will come into his head and he will stop the war. He will say, let it be, let's not fight. I am fine whether I have to go back to another 15 years, 14 years of exile, or I don't want anything from Duryodhana. He never expected that Duryodhana will be the person, his son will be the person who will stop the war. He never expected that. But he did have this small little expectation, even as everyone was gathered in the battlefield, that Yudhishthira will say that I do not want the war, and Dharma says that the war should not happen. He never ever expected that Arjuna will be the one who says that I do not want the war. So this is like, you know, some kind of a boon from nowhere, which he never thought would come to him. And Arjuna was absolutely confused. We all saw that. Now, confusion is not a sign of wisdom. That's absolutely true. We all know that. It's not a sign of wisdom. But at times, confusion can be a sign of goodness. And when there is goodness, there is always a solution that is possible. We will see later, you know, what is it that is good about Arjuna that helps him qualify to get this Sankhya or this knowledge. We will come to that in a little bit. But it is this goodness which leads to the confusion. This soft-heartedness of Arjuna. This feeling of, you know, why are we doing this? That is the goodness that has caused his confusion. And now Sanjaya starts describing what happens with Arjuna in this situation. What situation? He has cast away his weapons, his bows and arrows. He has sat down in his chariot and he has told Sri Krishna, after describing all the aspects of sorrow in a very deluded manner, he has told Sri Krishna that he is not going to fight. Even if he is killed in the battle, he is not going to fight. That is the situation where now Sanjaya starts explaining what's going to happen next. The beginning of chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga.
Om Paramatmane Namaha Atha Dvitiyodhyayah.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Dvitiyodhyayah Sankhya Yoga.
Sanjaya Uvacha.
Sanjaya Uvacha.
Tam tata kripaya vishtam.
Tam tatha kripaya vishtam.
Ashrupurna kulikshanam.
Ashrupurna kulekshanam.
Vishidantamidam vakyam.
Vishidantamidam vakyam.
Uvacha Madhusudanaha.
Vacha Madhusudanaha.
Sanjaya Uvacha Tam tata kripaya vishtam. Ashrupurna kulikshanam. Vishidantamidam vakyam. Uvacha Madhusudanaha.
So when Arjuna is in this state, in this despondent state, Sri Krishna comes to the rescue. At a time of great peril. Why great peril? Because everyone is in the middle of the battlefield. Arjuna has ordered Sri Krishna to take the Ratha right in front of the enemy, and he has cast away his weapons. So this is a time when he was prime target, easy target for the enemy. And if Arjuna is killed in the war, then the defeat of the Pandavas is pretty much certain. And if the defeat of the Pandavas happens, Dharma is going to take a beating. Dharma is going to be defeated. So it's a time of great peril. Everything would be destroyed, not just for the Pandavas, but for the society as a whole, for the kingdom. Everyone in the kingdom wanted this war. Everyone wanted Pandavas to win and Yudhishthira to become the king. And the bigger problem was that Dharma was at the risk of having been in a position where it would be highly compromised. Dharma would definitely have taken a blow. And Sri Krishna now acted. He took action. And he took action to do what? To protect Dharma. And Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, takes action to protect Dharma always by protecting the good. In fact, another verse that we will come to a little later in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 4, there Bhagavan says, and it's a very famous verse in chapter 4, verse number 8, Paritranaya sadhunam Vinashaya cha dushkritam Dharma samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami yuge yuge Paritranaya sadhunam Vinashaya jatushkritam Dharma samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami yuge yuge. So there God says that I will be there for the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked, of the adharmic, protection of the good, that is protecting Dharma, and for the destruction, Vinashaya, that is of the wicked. Dharma samsthapanarthaya, to re-establish righteousness. Sambhavami yuge yuge, I will project myself, I will take avatar in every age, whenever required, as per requirement. So here he is not just protecting Arjuna. We talked about Arjuna going and seeking his help, refusing the help of the army and saying that Krishna, I want only your help. You nihatta at that time, he says, without any weapons. Just you, Krishna. Don't need your army. Don't need your weapons. I just want you to help me. And at that time, Arjuna says that. And that is the reason Krishna has agreed to help him. But he is now here not just to help Arjuna. He is here to protect Dharma. That is his avatara karya. It is called as his avatara karya, his duty in his avatara, for which he has taken, for which he has projected himself into the earth. And he says, basically, what he sees is Kripaya Vishtam. So what happened? Arjuna, Kripaya means compassion. Avishtam, Kripaya Avishtam. He has been overcome with compassion. Not just overcome. Avishtam means possessed, like a spirit. Arjuna has been possessed with compassion. Now, we talked about this earlier also. Compassion can be of two kinds. Paraya, and Paraya means supreme, and Paraya also means, if you remember verse 21 of chapter 1, where we said, Kripaya Paraya Vishto Vishidantam Abravit. So this Arjuna's compassion, what do we think it is? Is it supreme? No, it is completely misplaced. It's the kind of love and compassion that comes from ignorance. Ignorance is the foundation of this, Ajnana is the foundation of this compassion. That kind of compassion, Tatha. In this verse, Tatha is referring to that Paraya, that misplaced compassion. Avishta, it has entered. And Vishidantam, and that has made Arjuna, because it is misplaced compassion, it has made him Vishidantam, sorrowful, despondent. And not only that, Ashrupurna Kulekshanam, Ashru means tears, clear tears. Clear tears happens when, initially when the tears come, they are not very clear. They are pretty salty. But clear tears happens when it has been coming again and again. That means it's been flowing for some time. So clear tears, full, Ashru Purna. Purna means full of. Kula, distress. Clear tears filled with distress, full of distress, are coming from his Ikshanam. Ikshanam means expressive eyes. Ashru Purna Pulekshanam means he's profusely weeping. Tears are flowing non-stop. And his eyes, which are so expressive, is a lot of distress. Full of distress. And who is this person? Remember, Deepak reminded us in the last class, this de facto king of the Pandavas. Even though Yudhishthira is the eldest brother and sits in the throne, everyone accepts and looks up to Arjuna. And this Arjuna, this leader, he is the one who is weeping uncontrollably. So, Sri Krishna, Madhusudana, the destroyer of Madhu, destroyer of the demon who stole the Vedas and destroyer of all the other demons, he now has one more demon to destroy, and that is delusion. This delusion that has crept and that has taken possession of Arjuna has to be destroyed by Sri Krishna. And how does he do this? He removes the wrong thinking by infusement of right thinking through uniting Arjuna with knowledge. That is how he does it. Now, Sri Krishna's compassion is also there, and that is of the supreme kind. That paraya is of the supreme kind. It is there for the righteous. It is there for dharma. It has a long-term vision. He does not compromise the long-term for short-term gain. Because he could have done that. You know, Sri Krishna could have won the war for the Pandavas. And he has demonstrated in the Mahabharata 2 or 3 times that when he gets his chakra out, then anything can happen. He could have done that. But he is compassionate enough not to do that, because the consequences of Sri Krishna taking his weapon out can be disastrous for mankind itself. So his supreme compassion just ensures that he is providing the right knowledge to the recipient, and we will see who the recipient is, so that that person is then able to perform his duty and do what is required. To be able to do what? Re-establish dharma. That is the ultimate goal, re-establishment of dharma. And with this goal, idam vakyam vacha Madhusudana. So idam vakyam, this speech, he commenced. So Madhusudana, Sri Krishna, he started with his speech. So Sanjay is actually indicating here that Dhritarashtra, please be prepared for a long discourse. We are now going to start the Bhagavad Gita. And who is going to give the speech? The Lord, the charioteer. Remember the helmsman when we talked about it? Kaivartaka Keshava. With Keshava as their Kaivartak, which is the helmsman, the Pandavas were able to cross this river of war, the ferocious river of war. And that helmsman who became the charioteer is now going to start. So we will recite verse 2 of the chapter 2.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha.
Kutastva kashmalamidam.
Kutastva kashmalamidam.
Vishame samupastitam.
Vishame samupastita.
Anaryajushtamasvargyam. Akirtikaram Arjuna.
Kutastva kashmalamidam. Vishame samupastitam. Anaryajushtamasvargyam. Akirtikaram Arjuna. Okay, so Sri Bhagavanuvacha. Sri means something which is reverential. Even today, Sri is used as a term to give reverence to people who are elderly or people who deserve that reverence. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha means the worshipful Lord said. So in this case, the reverence is provided to God in the form of worship. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha means the worshipful Lord said. And who said? Bhagavan. Now, we are not saying Sri Krishna Vacha. We are not saying Krishna Vacha like we say Arjuna Vacha, Sanjaya Vacha. We didn't say Krishna Vacha. We did not even say Sri Krishna Vacha. We are saying Sri Bhagavan Vacha. And there is a deep meaning in terms of why we use this term. And this comes a number of times in the Bhagavad Gita. So, Van in Bhagavan, the Van part of Bhagavan, is a suffix. And that suffix, it means persistent. It indicates continuity of what is there. Something which is there, the continuity of that, the permanence of that, the persistence of that is indicated by the term Van. For example, you will also hear about Dhanavan, Vidyavan, Bhagyavan. So Dhanavan means someone who has a continuity of wealth, who is persistently wealthy, who has wealth in the long run, Nitya. Similarly, Vidyavan is a person who has persistent knowledge, continuity of knowledge, is Vidyavan. So, Van stands for something which is there for the long term, which is permanent, which is Nitya. And even a little bit of loss or even a significant amount of loss in that element does not cause any dent. So, for example, now the markets have crashed in the last few weeks. But do you think the wealth of Bill Gates or Mukesh Ambani, there's any significant impact on that? It's hardly felt. So they are Dhanavan, persistent in terms of, the wealth. Bhaga, literally, the literal meaning of Bhaga is prosperity. And in the context of the Lord, this indicates certain aspects that reflect or that represent prosperity. And these are 6 in number. So we will go through these, what these aspects are, what these traits are, which indicate that prosperity in Bhagavan. I will recite a shloka for that and we will start explaining that after that. Aishwaryasya samagrasya
Aishwaryasya samagrasya
Dharmasya yashasriyaha
Dharmasya yashasriyaha
Vairagyasattamokshasya
Vairagyasya mokshasya
Shannam bhaga itingana
Shannam bhaga itingana
Aishwaryasya samagrasya Dharmasya yashasriyaha Vairagyasattamokshasya Shannam bhaga itingana. So here, Samagrasya is not one of the 6. Samagra means something which is persistent, which is full, complete. So Samagrasya stands for that which is persistent, complete, full. And what are the 6 aspects of Bhaga which we refer to with respect to Bhagavan, or prosperity that we refer to with respect to Bhagavan? The first one is Aishwarya. Aishwarya means lordship. Lordship means someone, a lord is someone who can control everything in the realm that he is responsible for. So he can control anything and everything in the entire creation. That lordship. And that is why we call him the Lord. The power to control. The second one is Dharma. Dharma in this context is virtue, nobility. One who has consistent, ever persistent nobility. The third is Yashas. Dharmasya Yashasya. Yashas means glory. Sriyaha. Sri means wealth. That is the fourth. Vairagya. Vairagya means dispassion. So even though, this is very important, even though he has the control, even though he has the dharma, even though he has the wealth, even though he has the glory, he is not attached to any of this. Non-attachment or dispassion is Vairagya. Moksha means liberation. He is not bound by anything at all. So these are the 6 aspects. Shannam. Shannam means 6. 6 aspects of Bhaga. The 6 aspects of prosperity. Itingana means they are there. So the 6 aspects of prosperity that the Lord is always endowed with at any given point in time. Always endowed with. The persistent, continuous presence of these traits is Bhagavan. We will find a lot of human beings who have some of these qualities, maybe some of all these qualities. We will find human beings who have one quality in full, maybe for a long period of time, and does not have a few others. But if you find someone who has all these qualities persistent at any given point in time, Nitya, that person you can say, I have seen God. So please watch out. If you're, they say that God is around us too. So if you look for these 6 traits, and if you find someone with these qualities which are there forever, persistent in that person, complete in that person, full, then you have seen God. So we all hope that, we come across that such a person. That Bhagavan, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, that Bhagavan spoke. Not Sri Krishna Vacha. That Bhagavan, he spoke. And we said that he has the first quality is Aishwarya, which means he controls all of his creation. This Bhagavan could have controlled all of Arjuna's thoughts. In a flash, he could have made Arjuna think differently, that he wanted to fight the war. Why did he have to do that? He can just control the entire war itself. In a moment, he can, destroy the Kauravas if he wants to. Whatever, he can do. But what did he do? He spoke. Uvacha. Actually, thank God he spoke. Because if he had not spoken, there would have been no Bhagavad Gita. There would have been no PM Bhagavad Gita Satsang. So thank God he spoke. And this is a very important aspect, because among today's leaders, we will find that there are so many leaders who are extremely capable individuals, but though they are capable as individuals in their self righteousness way, they do not build capability. They do not delegate. They end up doing everything themselves. They do not build capacity around them. Here, Sri Krishna is making somebody else do. Thereby, he is teaching. And not only did he teach Arjuna, through Arjuna, even till today we are learning. After centuries, we are learning. So, a true leader, a true Bhagavan, a leader to that kind of potential is someone who leaves behind his teachings, leaves behind capability for generations, for other people to perform and succeed. Maybe even more in our human context, maybe even more than Bhagavan, maybe even more than the leader. So his intent of why he spoke was that his intent was not just to address the Arjuna of that time. The Arjuna of that time was despondently lying in his chariot. The intent that he had was to speak to all of us. And now when we go through the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, he is talking to us. And that is what we are learning from. And did he speak with compassion? Did he speak with his supreme compassion? So let's look at that. See, misplaced compassion is something that we talked about, and supreme compassion is something that we talked about. Now, misplaced compassion is also artificially clouding a message with softness, or not saying what someone wants to convey or how you want to convey it. Oftentimes, we try to cloud what we have to say with a degree of softness because we don't want to seem harsh. We want to be nice. But we must remember that being nice does not always mean being good. And here Bhagavan shows that it's not the time to be nice. We will read the next verse. We'll read it once again, Sarika. I know we did it, but let's read it once again.
श्रीभगवानुवाच कुटस्त्वकश्मलमिदम् विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन।
Shri Bhagavanvacha Kutastva Kashmalamidam Vishame Samupastitam Anargyajushtamasvargyam Akirtinkara Arjuna. So the worshipful Lord said, what did he say? Kutas. I'm slightly changing the sequence of what the verse reads like. Okay. Kutas. Vishame. Idam Kashmalam. Samupastitam Tva. So Kutas, from where? He's saying to Arjuna, from where? Vishame, in this situation of peril. Vishame means in this dire situation, in this situation of peril. Idam Kashmalam, this dirt. Samupastitam Tva, come to you. How beautiful he is saying this, huh? From where, in this situation of peril, did this dirt come to you, O Arjuna? So he is talking about dirt. What does he mean? He means that it is the dirt that is in Arjuna's mind. Now, this is more difficult to clean than physical dirt. Physical dirt can be cleaned with surf or with vim or with some detergent. But mental dirt is very difficult to remove. But in a proper situation, in a qualified person, mental dirt can be removed. That is the good news, even though it is very difficult to remove. And what can be more dirty in a human mind than delusion? So Arjuna may have glorified his thoughts. He may have presented them in a very convincing manner, or what he thought is a convincing manner. Not only that he present them in a convincing manner, he may also try to make Sri Krishna, we saw it last time, he tried to make Sri Krishna an accomplice by including Sri Krishna, in the argument. Mahat papam vayam kartum. So he is telling Krishna in verse 45, I think, of chapter 1, this is a great sin, O Krishna, that we are committing. He includes Sri Krishna, we are committing. But what does God do? He destroys this argument with one sentence. Just that one sentence. Kuttastva kashmalamidam vishame samupastitam. From where did you get this dirty thought? He is telling Arjuna. Okay? He is not mincing his words. He is blasting Arjuna. He goes further and he uses three extremely powerful words to drive home the point. The first word that he uses is anarya jushtam. Anarya means ignoble. Someone who is not noble. Arya means noble in Sanskrit. Okay? And people who are Aryans are noble people. Now this is a very, very confused term. Sanskrit existed in India much before, the Westerners, the people who invaded India from the Northeast. Much before the first of them came, Sanskrit existed in India. And the true meaning of Aryans is noble people. Whereas the British, it's actually something which has been quote unquote mischievously polluted by the British, this term Aryan, to mean that Aryans are people who came from outside, Dravidians are people who were in India, and the Aryans came in and drove the Dravidians south. This is pretty mischievous thing by the British to do what? British prospered in divide and rule. With due respect to the Britishers of today, the Britishers of yore prospered in divide and rule, and they created this divide and rule in India by dividing the Aryans and the Anaryans. Originally, Aryans means noble people. And Anarya means people who are not noble, who have unworthy thoughts. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, Anarya Jushtam, you are having thoughts which are not noble. So Jushtam means noble people will not resort to this kind of thought process. They will not resort to the kind of action that you have done here, which is discarding your weapons and sitting down. The second word he uses for Arjuna is asvargyam. Asvargyam means this kind of a thought process will not take you to a higher state of existence. Swarga, heaven. It's not going to take you to heaven. It's not going to take you to Swarga. It's a higher state of existence, and you are not going to achieve this by this kind of ignoble thoughts. And the third word he uses is akirtikaram. Akirtikaram means, what about this life? What about this state in which you are existing? Akirti. Akirti means disgraceful. And it will, this kind of a thought process, this kind of an action, in this state, in this existence also, is disgraceful and will lead you to infamy, O Arjuna. So he has basically, what Krishna has told him is, very bluntly told him that, Arjuna, you have this mental dirt in you, and this mental dirt is going to make you behave in a very ignoble manner. It is not going to take you to heavens, and it is going to take you to infamy. And then he continues. He continues and gives him another blow. Let's read verse 3.
Klaibyam mam smagama partha.
Klaibyam ma samagha partha.
Naitattvayupapadyate.
Naitattvayupapadyate.
Shudram hridaya daurbalyam.
Shudram hridaya daurbalyam.
Yatvotishta parantapa.
Yaktutishta parantapa.
Klaibyam mam smagama partha. Naitattvayupapadyate. Shudram hridaya daurbalyam. Yatvotishta parantapa.
So klaibyam means unmanly, not being manly. It actually also means impotence. So klaibyam ma samaga partha. Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, is telling Arjuna, do not yield to impotence, O Partha. A very, very strong message. Naitat tvai upapadyate. Upapadyate. That means it does not befit you. It does not belong. It does not befit. So this kind of unmanly attitude does not befit. You are a Kshatriya. You are a warrior. You are someone who is supposed to be with courage, with valor. And that is how you have been all through your life. And in this situation, it just does not belong to you. It does not belong to the situation. And it doesn't befit you at all. Forget about not befitting, not being fit of a warrior. It does not even befit a man. So don't become important, Arjuna. And he's addressing Arjuna in two ways here. Earlier, he had actually called Arjuna, Arjuna. Here, he's calling him Partha. Partha is who? We talked about this earlier. Partha is son of Pritha. Pritha is Kunti. And Kunti, if you read the Mahabharata, has had an extremely difficult life. And she has brought up her 5 children in very difficult circumstances. Lost her husband at a very young age, was not treated as a deserving queen ought to be treated in the kingdom. Her children were banished and had to spend years in exile. She had to go with them. And there were times when in the second or the third exile, she could not even go with them, and had a very, very difficult life. And in all these difficult circumstances, she had brought up her children. And she also had her first son, who was Karna actually. And under very difficult conditions, she had to let go of her eldest son. So a mother letting go of her eldest son is very difficult. And not only that, she actually asked, because she had a very tough life, she prayed to Krishna. And she said, give me more difficult situations. Because when I get difficult situations, I think of you. And when I think of you, I forget about my difficulties. So please continue with difficulties. Okay. So that is the kind of lady Pritha or Kunti was. And Partha, you are not the son of your mother. You are not your mother's son. is what Sri Krishna is indicating. Hridaya Daurbalyam. Hridaya Daurbalyam means faint-heartedness. And you are displaying so much of faint-heartedness. You are describing to me your 6 elements of sorrow. That you can't, your hands are sweating, your skin is burning, I'm not able to hold my weapons, and so on and so forth. And you are just showing that you are weak-hearted. Just abandon these. Tyaktva. Give it up. Tyaktva means give it up. Give it up, Arjuna. Because, why? Because it is Shudram. It is a petty way of thinking. Shudram means petty. And it has made you appear very small, which you are not, Arjuna. You are not, you are a big warrior. You are the best warrior of these times. You are the prime leader in the Pandava forces. And this attitude of yours, this action of yours has made you appear Shudram, or extremely small. And then he says, Uttishta, get up. Get up, Parantapa. And this is the second term that he uses for Arjuna. The first term he used for Arjuna was Partha. And the second term he uses for Arjuna is Parantapa. Parantapa means scorcher of enemies. Parantapa iti Parantapa. Paran means Shatru or enemy. Tapa is scorch when you put it in the fire. That is Tapa. So Parantapa is someone who scorches enemies. So you are a scorcher of enemies, and look at you. So what has Sri Krishna done in these first 2 verses of where he has started speaking? The second and third verses of chapter 2. He has, after listening patiently to Arjuna, Arjuna went on and on and on. Actually, not only did Sri Krishna listen to him patiently, he allowed Arjuna to went away, exhaust himself, till the time that he just sat down completely exhausted in his chariot. And after that, in less than a minute, he blasted Arjuna, completely blasted him with these 2 verses. And now we will see what Arjuna does. That will be the next time. And actually, the next Saturday will be one of my favorite verses. We will see that why. It's verse number 7. We will cover that in the next session. We'll finish for today.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vashishtati. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om. We'll spend some time exchanging thoughts, discussing, and so on, as always. So actually, chapter 2 is one of the most interesting chapters, and it just brings about a lot of learning. And I hope that after chapter 2, all of us are excited to go through the remaining part of Bhagavad Gita, because it does come in, like we said in the beginning, it is the summary in prospect in the beginning, in anticipation. So it will create a lot of anticipation in us. One of the most beautiful chapters of the Bhagavad Gita.
I have a question actually. So,
Yes.
when we spoke about Arjuna's situation today, we said that the compassion that he felt, because of which he, he kind of gave up on fighting the war, is misplaced compassion. So, I don't know if I've been able to get that right, because the compassion that he felt was towards his teacher, towards Bhishma, towards his cousins. So it is still a true compassion, but is it the scenario which actually makes it misplaced, or how is that like?
Yep. We have talked about this in a different way in the past also, right? And that is, look at the history of what happened. If you see the history of what happened, why are they there now? And just go a little bit back. Senayor Ubayor Madhye Ratham Sthape Mechyuta. He commands, Achyuta, go take my Ratha to the middle of the army. Why? I want to see who is there. And I want to pick my targets. So Arjuna says, I want to pick my targets. And then he looks at his target and he gets compassion. Where was this compassion earlier, before Senayo Ubayor Madhye? That is why it is misplaced.
Okay, got it.
Senayo Ubayor Madhye also, he saw Bhishma, no?
Yes.
And if you remember, we talked about the final year of exile when they were in disguise. And in that, he was in disguise as a eunuch.
Yeah.
And towards the fag end of the disguise, Duryodhana kind of got to know, that the Pandavas were in the Matsya kingdom. And he launched an attack. He launched flanking attacks from the north and the south. So Arjuna was the only warrior left along with the crown prince to go and deal with who? Deal with Bhishma, Drona, Kripacharya, Karna, Duryodhana, and Ashwathama. 6 warriors. And he completely defeated each one of them, got them in a situation where they were fainted, took their robes and went back. Where was his compassion?
Yeah.
How could he defeat his Dronacharya that time, his Bhishma that time? That time he didn't have compassion. Now it's done. That is why it is misplaced.
Okay.
If he had to have compassion, he should have had it at that time, not now.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
It was a very well thought out, and they were in the situation. Everyone tried their level best, including Sri Krishna, to not have this war. All they asked for was 5 huts. Even that was not given to them. Forget about that, is from a selfish point of view. Give me 5 huts, we will also be one of the subjects of the kingdom suffering. And the subjects were suffering anyway. The subjects wanted them to fight. It was very obvious at that time that, it was as obvious that Congress had to go and BJP had to come. That even more obvious that, Duryodhana had to go and Yudhishthira had to come. That was the state of affairs at that time. And even then, they refused to leave. Unlike a democracy today, at that time, the king will change only when the existing king steps down. And if the existing king doesn't step down, he has to be forced to step down. So everything was tried and nothing worked. And this was an ultimate situation. And that is where, everyone was completely prepared to fight this war. And at that situation, in that moment of peril, is when Arjuna lost.
Okay.
That is why it is misplaced.
Now I understand it.
Still to argue, Srini, still to argue on the same line as Sarika said, yeah.
Yes, please.
Let's give some credit to Arjuna and not totally discredit him. He is having this worldly compassion, right? He has been taught to be worldly. Now he is saying, I am attached to this, I am attached to this. I mean, this is also his training, right? I mean, he is not Shri Bhagwan. For Shri Bhagwan to be at that level and, see everything as equal, every situation as equal, this is, being worldly is also means attached, right? So this is what Arjuna is also doing here. He's not Shri Bhagwan.
So actually, on the contrary, so you're talking about the Vairagya aspect of Bhagwan. Yeah. But on the contrary, Deepak, Arjuna is also claiming lack of attachment. He says, I don't want anything. If you remember chapter 1, he says, I don't want the kingdom. I don't want the bhoga or the pleasures that come from the kingdom. I don't want power. I don't want richness. I don't want anything. I am willing to sacrifice everything here. I am willing to die. So he says, I'm not even attached to this life. Let the enemy kill me. I'm happy to be dead. Let them kill me while I'm unarmed. So he is actually claiming to be completely unattached too.
Okay, yeah. That's...
So it is.
Good point, yeah. Thanks.
Aditi, you had mentioned before the class that you have some question.
I am actually thinking about what Deepak just asked. And as you said, Arjuna, so what did you exactly say about Arjuna? That he, at that point in time, also had no attachment. Now, what I feel is he had no attachment to the material things, but he still is attached to his relations, isn't it?
So see that we are not debating whether he is attached or not attached. The point is he's claiming to be not attached. And he is saying that I am willing to give up my life, which means what? I am willing to give up my relations also. Just that I don't want to take their life.
Yeah.
I am willing to give up my life. Let them kill me here. So he says, you know, I don't want my relations also. I don't want anything. So though, in fact, my wife Draupadi, who has been so much insulted, not just she as a lady, but the entire, the feminine element of society has been insulted. And I came here saying I'm going to protect and re-establish that and re-establish the honor. I came with all of that vigor. And after coming here, you know what? I don't even want my wife. I don't want to re-establish anything. You know, the feminine can look after themselves. I'll die here.
I would call it forgiving.
See, forgiving in the context of anything else is okay. But when it comes to, see, that is why is this situation of extreme peril? And why did we talk about, you know, Bhagavan says, I'll take avatara. At that moment where dharma is going to take a blow, where it is dharma is going to get compromised. At that situation, there is no space, forgiveness is misplaced. The forgiving nature is misplaced in that situation. Because if you are going to be forgiving, what are you going to do? You are going to be forgiving to who? To Duryodhana. And what about dharma? So you are going to forgive a villain and let goodness suffer, let righteousness suffer. That is not forgiving.
So let's give Arjuna at least this much credit that without his Vishada, we would not have had Gita in front of us.
Absolutely. That is true. That is very, very true. Because of Arjuna, through him, God is talking to us today. So yeah, Arjuna, Vishada, that's why it's called Vishada Yoga. That's where yoga, how can you connect sorrow and yoga? But in Bhagavad Gita, it beautifully gets connected. That is exactly the reason. What you just said is the reason. Sorrow and yoga get united because of Arjuna. And he gets, through his sorrow, he gets united to Bhagavan. That is why one of the reasons I said verse 7 is my favorite. We will see in verse 7, see, till now, Sri Krishna is extremely reverential, by the way. All of them know the powers of Sri Krishna. Everyone knows. Even Duryodhana knows. But Duryodhana insults Sri Krishna. Arjuna does not insult Sri Krishna. He loves Sri Krishna. But till now, he is looking at Sri Krishna as his friend. He is looking at Sri Krishna as his charioteer. In verse 7, we will see that he will look at Sri Krishna as his guru. Even then, not yet God, as his guru. So he will embrace, he will accept Sri Krishna as his guru. Till now, he has not accepted Sri Krishna as his guru.
Thank you.
So yes, I completely agree with you. Because of him, we are, able to receive this knowledge.
Srini, Can you hear me?
Yes, Vipin.
Okay, Srini, there's a saying that, justice can be tempered with mercy. Okay? Because mercy and compassion is at the higher level compared to justice. Okay, now why Krishna is provoking Arjuna for justice when we all know the divine is all compassion? He could have said, okay, let them take the thing. No, and moreover, we are just, our soul is basically a prisoner in the body and we will be giving up the life. So it does not matter. Yeah, let them rule. Okay, if you are happy not getting your share of property or kingdom, whatever it is okay. No problem. And I am the compassionate one, controlling all the thought process and everything. Let Kauravas have all this. It does not matter. Why he created a situation probably to impart this knowledge of Gita, and he had this character called Arjuna, who is surrendering his weapons, and then Krishna provokes him, no, you fight, so that he could impart this lesson.
So that's a very interesting way to look at it. Okay, so see, the Krishna, and that is the reason, this is exactly the reason I recited the verse Karmanyevadikaraste Ma Phaleshu Kadachana. So this is why I recited, because Sri Krishna has come after this situation has happened in the planet. He manifests, he takes avatara after this kind of a situation. And when we see repeatedly, and we see that in all cultures, God says that I have created. Now it is up to you, humankind, to run your planet the way you want to run. And I'm not going to interfere with the way you're going to run it. But if you take it to a level of decadence that it goes to an extreme and it affects dharma, that is when I will come to protect. So he has allowed humanity to continue for a long period of time. That is, he has allowed. He has, in fact, in his extreme compassion, he went as an emissary. This will keep coming up again and again and again. He gave humanity, he gave that element of humanity, the villainous element of humanity that was destroying dharma. He gave it ample chance. He went as an emissary to Hastinapura. Bhagwan need not go as an emissary. Like we said, we saw his Aishwarya control power, right? But he went. And what did Duryodhana do? He ordered his guards to capture and imprison Sri Krishna. So what do you do after that? If you drive someone to the wall, then you have to act. After that, you have to act. So I'm going to tell you a very interesting story, and this has nothing to do with Mahabharata or Bhagavad Gita. If you go back to Ramayana, we have this very interesting story where Lakshmana is lying injured in battle. And the only way to save Lakshmana is to get this Sanjeevani booty. Hanuman is given this task of getting the Sanjeevani booty. In fact, he has to be reminded of his powers that he can actually go and bring the Sanjeevani booty. While he is doing this, when he is transitioning through the ocean to do this job, he faces 3 obstacles. And the first obstacle he faces is where this Mainak Parbat, it comes up and says, hey, Hanuman, you must be tired, please relax. You are fighting a war and now you are crossing the ocean. You have crossed the ocean earlier also. And now, you must be really tired. Take a rest, take some rest and then go. And Hanuman says, Rama kaj kare binu mohe kaha vishram. Where will I rest? I have to finish my task. So he doesn't fall under the temptation of this offer of resting, of this relaxation. And, this beautiful spa resort out there. So he says, I'll do the spa resort thing later. Right now I have to finish my duty. And duty to who? To Lord Rama. The second thing that comes up is this, this demon that says, I'm going to swallow you. And, Hanuman says, you cannot swallow me because I'll become bigger. And then he's surprised to see that the demon has, opened the mouth wider. The bigger Hanuman becomes, the wider the demon opens the mouth. So the first obstacle taught us the lesson that when you are performing your duty, please do not get distracted. The second obstacle, where the demon is opening the mouth wider and wider, what does Hanuman do? He says, he strikes a deal with the demon. He says, you know what, I will enter your mouth, which is what you want me to do. But once I enter your mouth, and if you don't eat me, you please let me go. And they shake hands. You know, the deal is made, struck. So Hanuman quickly, you know, he has the power. He quickly shrinks himself, goes in, comes out, and then he says, hey, I've gone into your mouth and come. Please let me go. And, you know, the Rakshas, the demon, says, yes, the deal is a deal. So please go. So here we see that you should know when to become big, when to become small, when to agree, when not to agree, when to strike a deal, when not to strike a deal. Okay. And Hanuman in this teaches us how to respond in various situations. The third obstacle he faces is this tremendous magnetic power that is pulling him to the ocean, into the depths of the ocean. His own shadow is pulling him. And he sees that this is another demonic power that is actually going to take him to the depths of the ocean and capture him there. So what does Hanuman do there? He doesn't waste even if no negotiation, no deal striking, no reminding, you know, the person of the duty and so on and so forth. Hanuman takes his gada, his mace, in a fraction of a second annihilates Simhika, the demon. So at that moment, what are we taught? That there are times when you have to annihilate the obstacle. You can't be showing compassion. You can't be having doubts about what you must do and should not do. Once that clarity, look at the history, look at the events that have led to the Senayo Ubayor Madhye. Events that have led to the Senayo Ubayor Madhye are extremely clear. Once that clarity is established, it is only delusion that clouds that clarity. And at that time, getting deluded is the most misplaced thing to happen. If those events had not happened, we can understand. But remember that life is a sequence of events. Life is not just one event. So there are a sequence of events that have led to this. And at that time, when you know, when that clarity is there, you act. You don't get deluded, you don't get compassionate, you don't get misguided.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks.
So a very tangential example, you know, Ramayana in between of Bhagavad Gita.
Srini, may I add my understanding to Vipin's question? I also found it very interesting. But yes, one statement which he made, they are saying that the justice, but I think this war was not to establish justice, This was for dharma. Dharma is even bigger than justice, This is clear that the justice is below compassion, but dharma is above compassion, in the hierarchy. And this war is for the establishment of dharma and not establishment of justice.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, Deepak, yeah,
good point.
Yeah, good point.
Anyone else?
Srini, can I ask something?
Yes, please.
You said at one point that confusion is a sign of goodness. I don't know if I understood properly. But I had a very bad connection today, so I didn't hear everything. But it caught my attention. Can you say something? Can you explain it a little bit, please?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I did say that. See, what I meant to say there was Arjuna is confused. We all know that. And why do we know he's confused? One moment he is determined to fight, and the other moment he is despondent. So there is a lot of confusion in his mind. That we understand. But confusion, definitely, what I meant to say there was, he was not being wise. When you are confused, there is zero possibility of wisdom. Wisdom is completely, 100% clouding of wisdom occurs through confusion. But 100% clouding of goodness does not occur through confusion. There is a chance that goodness can remain. So while Arjuna was not being wise at all, his wisdom had deserted him because of the confusion. there was an element of goodness in him. And we will come to that in the next session, where we will say that this element, and we'll connect it up, where we'll say that this element of goodness actually qualifies him to receive this knowledge, which then becomes the yoga. So for any kind of unit, for yoga to happen, a lot, Petra, you know, for yoga to happen, a lot of things have to come in place. That uniting that happens is a very powerful uniting. That it's not easy. And for Arjuna to be that recipient of Sankhya, and for him to be able to unite with that Sankhya, with that knowledge, he needed, one of the key elements was goodness. And that goodness helped him be a true recipient of that knowledge. And we will connect it in the next session. So that is the point I was trying to set a precedent for the next session by making that point.
Okay, thank you.
Great. If there are no other points, it's now 5:35. Anyone else? Any other question, thought, comment? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Hari Om.